Well, good evening and welcome to our March Greenways Open Space meeting for March 7th, 2023. At this time, I'd like to begin the meeting at 7:05 and call it to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good. Thank you. First off, I would like to entertain a motion to move into closed session.
The purpose of the motion is to...
I move that the Greenways Open Space Committee meet in closed session under Section 8C of the Open Meetings Act to consider the purchase of township-owned property that may be of interest in acquiring for protected open space.
Second.
Any discussion? Second. All those in favor will do the roll, and we need a 2/3 vote. St. Pierre?
Yes.
Frucci is absent. Weeks? Yes. Urbani?
Aye.
Geist?
Aye.
Phillips?
Yes.
Talaba is absent. Mr. Bloetscher?
Aye.
Stevenson? Aye. So at this point, we will go into closed session for the purpose of discussion relative to purchase of property. 1:53. So we've been pretty good with that. Are we on the air? We are live. Okay, we're back. I would entertain a motion to go back into open session at this point in time.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Bonney. Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bloetscher. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Our next order of business is the approval of the agenda as you see. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda as presented? No. Motion to approve the agenda for the March 7th meeting. Moved by Ms. Weeks,
Second.
second by Mr. Geist. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? No presentations this evening? Not that we know of, no. If you would look, the approval of the minutes, woeful as they may be by the scribe that wrote them.
I thought they were quite satisfactory.
Thank you, Mr. Geist, who you do a superlative job, and your replacement did the best he could. I need a motion to approve the minutes from our February 7th meeting.
So move.
Moved by Mr. Geist,
Second.
second by Mr. Bonney. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Nope. Good. Motion passed. All right. Our next, and again, I believe everyone received at least a working, kind of a worksheet that we've used in the past here. And I took the liberty of simply taking what was given, not in its final capacity from last year, although the budget for last year, if you take a look at the 1, 2, 3, fourth column there, fifth column where it says budget for 2022, 2023, those numbers are correct. And we budgeted for $50,800 in our maintenance fund, in our activities, and we spent $31,000. So we were under budget and frugal as we have been.
I got a couple questions and comments in regards to that.
Yes.
I guess the first one is that, yes, we spent $31,000, but we also received credit of roughly $10,000 for interest and donations in that. How does that get accounted for in any of this budget process, if it does at all?
Other than the fact that it is established as revenue, which again is a very good thing. So what the monies that we had in there, and again, starting was like that year was $175,000. That money received interest, and I suspect the township manager and the township treasurer has certainly garnered that and stewarded that money. The donations generally come from viewers just like you, but no, that we have people that literally donate to the township and on behalf of open space.
Could
Like,
some of that be the
send that,
scrap?
but also it's through when we hold our dump the junk events. Fritz Enterprises, as we do the scrapping of metal, returns the proceeds from that come right back to open space. Okay, to our. And in the past, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, a goodly portion of that was also given to the schools for school programs in the past. And we'll talk a little bit more about school programs as we progress in the meeting. But that's where, so there has been at least some revenue. So when we're looking at our budget, it's kind of like, well, we're spending $31,000, we had that. Now we at least have some money restored to the maintenance portion based on interest and donations.
Yeah, well, on that, with the property acquisition, that interest is going to drop quite a bit for the next year.
Correct.
Because we won't be earning interest on it. So going through the expenditure list that we had before, it doesn't really designate difference between trail maintenance and tree cutting. Most of it's tree cutting, and I totaled
Yes.
that up to be about $25,000.
Correct.
So I guess it really, in the end, doesn't matter how much you between the trail and the cutting, as long as the total of two is,
Correct.
less than that.
And keep in mind, here's the other thing, I put some blue numbers out, I was trying to come up with a significant, color, but I put some blue numbers out in the margin here, only those, that's just for sake of placeholding and discussion, okay? So when you're looking at it, but again, if we can, if you want to go this, like, we can go, and this won't be like the budget meeting where we're going page by page, but it's certainly, if you're going line item by line item, based on certain realities that we have right now, based on our past experiences. I'm looking at, for example, we budgeted $700 for removal of trash and debris. I said, well, let's come in at $5. Tree cutting and removal, which this year, and you're correct, Mr. Geist, that we spent like $25,000 TNT mainly doing tree cutting. Some we directed them to do on our trails, the 5 major trails that we have. But also, we know that if our properties or properties that are adjacent to open space, a tree falls on your property, the township, it comes out of our budget, our maintenance budget, to maintain that. And that happens, in particularly given the ice storm, and that happens on a regular basis, and it has happened. So if you took a look at the original, some of our expenditures on that one budget I sent you, which I will continue to send you every month, so you know exactly where we're at. It's a question of, you'll see but the bulk of our budget was for tree removal.
And it probably will continue to be
And we'll
that
continue
way.
to do so, right. But I said, okay, but we're down maybe from 17 to, these numbers can change.
That's fine.
So I don't know, for the benefit of this discussion, and I'm looking at time, how would you like to handle, you want to do this line by line, or is there a easier way to do it? But I came up with, given the fact that we, for example, if you take a look at the ones that were zeroed out, maybe. So new tree and plantings that came out of, don't recall us, at least in the past several years, doing any kind of new tree plantings. Am I correct? So even though it may have allocated $500, well, we haven't been doing that, and I don't know unless somebody wants to do that. I mean, that's something we could talk about. Same with the next one, where eradication of invasive species, that we had $3,000 that were budgeted for 2023. I don't recall us moving in that direction with any kind of eradication of invasive species.
There's also budgeted for the year before that, so I'm just wondering, was there a plan or some thoughts of looking into something like that? Why is it?
Well, in the past, as far as the individual line items, a lot of it was based on, excuse me, historical information.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it was just based on a scientific guess of what was going to happen. So I think what we should be doing is focusing on the total bottom line.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's
So,
Right.
and let as far as the details are concerned, just put them in as you have done in the past, is based on what's been spent in the past and just a scientific guess.
Right. Right.
So I wouldn't get.
But again, here $3,000 was allocated, and there was a time where we did have, we're a very aggressive program throughout GROSSE for like invasive species, for Phragmites or purple loosestrife and things of that nature. And I know the Conservancy is working with, that's in your report, is working on, improving and working on new and different ways of eradicating that. So that's the only things when I'm talking about. The open space wood cutting programs that I zeroed out, I said we haven't done that in a while, and there were issues of liability with that in the first place, and whether we want to restore that, I mean, that may be, something to look at. But only other thing I really zeroed out was the new trails for Ferry Road in Manchester. Those are complete. So if we had monies budgeted for that, I don't think that we need to budget monies for those, other than to maintain the trails as we generally do. And again, those trails have been completed, and we will go from there. So however you want to.
I could see keeping the tree planting or the planting, because I've had thoughts about, where we cleared the trees back under the power lines running along Meridian.
Yes. Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I thought that'd be pretty cool if we planted some bulbs in there or something, some deer.
So yeah, some deer food.
Anti-deer.
Anti-deer.
There is such a thing.
I thought we're trying to keep plastic out of the open space, but anyway. But yes,
Plastic is what, no. What are they called?
Daffodils are.
Daffodils.
daffodils are generally pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of different,
I thought that would be kind of cool, or wildflowers. So as you're going down that bike trail, instead of people complaining that, oh, we cleared too much out,
right.
and let's plant trees under the power lines,
Mhm.
let's just put
Yes,
some
right.
bulbs under that.
I hear you. That's DTE's right away.
But at any rate, so I could see us maybe doing that in the future.
Mhm.
We could just put that under the trail maintenance.
Squirrels like the
In that.
bulbs too.
Pardon me, I'm sorry.
The squirrels like bulbs too.
Yes, they do. I can tell you the dump junk programs usually with our costs for that, and there are costs related to conducting those. And so that, by the time we're done, it runs pretty close to about $8,000 a year to do both programs. So each time we run it, it's approximately $4,000.
That's not showing up in the
Yeah,
expense reports. That came out to about $4,000.
For one.
So they haven't given us the cost for the fall one yet?
I don't.
The sheet you gave me
I'd have to look.
was through January,
I'd
right?
have to look, yeah.
The
So-
$30,000?
So in terms of the invasive species, does that include bugs too?
Not that I know of. No, I would say no.
Isn't it plants?
Yeah, mainly plants.
Well, I mean. Can be.
I mean, I'm not aware, and your point's really well taken, I'm not aware of any program recently that we are looking at on a township level for, if there's some insect infestation that,
Seems like the Japanese beetle?
Right.
Maple? Taken off. I don't know if we're doing
Mhm.
anything about that or not, or if there is anything to do about it.
We gotta keep stay aware of what's coming, what's showing up. You
right?
know, We had a pretty, effective, we put a lot of attention into looking about oak wilt when that was spreading around. I don't think we ever found it on GROSSE. But it still exists, so it's probably something we
Mhm.
should.
Something to
Well, it
look
just
into.
came to mind because
Right.
the neighbor said that all his maples that are like gorgeous trees in his front.
Are starting to get wilts, or starting to get,
are all breaking, the branches are breaking from the beetle.
Well, let's look into that because
Right.
that's.
I didn't know if that was
I
a
would
thing
too.
that we need to be worried about, or.
I would think so.
We need to get a notice out there for people not to put their scrap wood in the open space because of that, or what do you do about it?
Has he had that confirmed with an arborist?
Yeah, he called, I guess,
Michigan State Extension Service.
And they said, I don't know, nothing about it. I don't know if that's
Okay, well, we can keep,
interpretation or if that's the
we,
actual
let's
answer.
keep it in. I mean, I'm not adverse to that.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
You know what I'm saying? The only other thing that when we're looking at, last year we had zero in, and maybe I thought maybe this year, is an update of the nature guide that generally has been put out. Okay, so the last time we did that was maybe 2018, 19?
Yeah, probably,
Okay,
I think 18.
thereabouts. So, but keep in mind, from the Nature and Land Conservancy adding properties, if there's been any kind of change in terms of properties that we have obviously either acquired or have acquired in that time, or if there's any new trails, and we know there are new trails now so that maybe needs to be updated, and I at least allocated like $2,000 for that type of at least updating of that. Now, do we recall, and former Chair St. Pierre, how much the cost was in terms, and Bert might know this too, the booklets that we purchased? How much did it cost to run the nature guides,
Printing?
the printing?
I probably have it somewhere.
Okay. But again, we can move some of these numbers around, but as you said, Cliff, if we're looking at the bottom line of like 36, I mean, it was however we can allocate this. And keep also in mind in terms of budgets can be revised over the course of time. So just like, we're talking about other possibilities in that regard, you can also maybe move some monies around if we have to, and we have done that, okay? Because it's all coming out of a maintenance fund, and it's not necessarily earmarked each, these are flexible.
I think it was about a bird, I think it was a couple of years ago that we put together.
Yeah, it was probably 2018.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
Right. So that needs to be updated, and as is like the big giant signs too, I think that need to get out there for the public. That certainly the Nature Conservancy, I think, did originally, the huge poster that has all the open space and that's been identified. And it's either, federal properties, state properties, township-owned properties. I mean, you have that.
I think as far as updating the pamphlet is concerned, I think that should be done when there is a major change.
Yes.
The character of our community. In other
Right,
words,
exactly.
additional properties are procured or
Yes.
something has happened or
That's why I put the money there. in
yeah,
that
either
regard.
new trails or
Yes,
whatever.
which we have done.
And if we have done that, then I think it's about time.
Yes, I agree. So any questions or any,
I have a
Yes.
question, Phil. And I think you just probably briefly touched on this. The tree cutting and removal 21-22 was 4,000, and for 22, 23, 17. And what you said, the issue with storms, fallen trees. Is it just there's more?
well, if you went back to 20, we were looking at the new ferry trails, okay? And that's been an ongoing kind of concern of this committee, certainly even before that time period. So over the course of like 2-3 years, okay, we have generally gotten to ourselves to a point where they did need to do this type of tree cutting in the ferry trail area. We do know that they've gone through the Meridian Trail area, okay, and that was just recently, and we did some major cutting in there, like 25 trees, and they have to come back like in the winter in order to do like oak trees, because if you cut them during the growth periods, then they end up dying and you lose a beautiful tree, or so that type of thing. So that's where that money comes from, and that's generally like as of right now, that's the bulk of our expenditures. The only other expenditure that we have that is a major one is the dump the junk, find a treasure. And then we have there's miscellaneous expenses that are generally there that are for, for any other kind of maintenance types of things that they need, like tools or equipment, things of this nature.
And you also take a note that even though 21, 22 was budgeted for 4,000, the actual costs were over $12,000.
Right.
So I think they kind of underestimated.
Yes, and that could be
How much
too,
it would cost.
as Cliff would say.
And I agree with the $36,000 is a little bit more than the 31,000 we spent. Should be taking into account things like inflation, and also with the recent storms we have, who knows how much additional work we might need to do to make sure trails are clear or in safe condition for people
Right.
to pass through and that. So it's probably wise to build a little bit more into this.
It is, and plus it's higher because we had the section of COVID there where we didn't do anything.
We didn't do anything, correct?
Some of that transferred over.
Mhm.
maybe
Yes.
Varied by a year or two. So when you
Yep.
let it build up, you gotta
Yeah, yes,
more of it.
I absolutely, well, we know that.
Thank you, thanks.
Okay, good. Any further discussion on the budget as for 2023, 2024? Is there a motion to approve the budget for 2023, 2024 at a cost from our maintenance fund of $36,000 for this year?
So approved, so moved.
Moved by Ms. Weeks.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bonney. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Good, thank you. The next action item that we have is adoption, thank you very much, the adoption of our annual report. And again, this is a format that generally we have used for the past several years. Correct me if I'm wrong, Cliff, this is and that goes into every committee that we have on GROSSE is generally asked to do a annual report. So this is the format that generally we have had and used. The first, and again, I sent this out earlier, so hopefully you had a chance to read it. The first three that we have there, in our estimation, they have been completed and complete. First one was remediation of the Meridian Woods drain to alleviate flooding in the adjacent neighborhoods. So we have the narrative that goes with that. The complete final stages in preparation of the Ferry trails. We have completed that, and we're looking forward to a May 2023 ribbon cutting ceremony. We have two Dump the Junk, very successful Dump the Junk, Find a Treasure events that we'll also talk about this evening, about establishing a date. We have reviewed open space for possible procurement, given our current balance of $150,000. And we can talk about that. And keep in mind, this is a rough draft, so if we have to change any of the statuses, we can. We have not yet, we've talked about and we've established the fact that we have the makings of an adopt-a-plot, an adopt-a-trail, adopt-a-plot, or Friends of GROSSE Natural Areas, and we have not, that's incomplete at this time, but we certainly have had discussions on that. We were talking about expanding the access to the thoroughfare canal from Meridian Road on the cutaways. We did not, other than the fact that the township had, in DTE, as they were going through and they used that area that's the cutaway on the west side, that is already there, that has access. And keep in mind, open space has several properties in there, as does the township. So there are township properties in there intermixed along the coast of the thoroughfare canal. And then we have not created, working with the township schools, a bat or an owl house. And usually due to post-COVID protocols and safety issues with the schools, that is incomplete. We were proposing, at least this is a proposed objectives for this year, and we can add or delete or do what we want on these. And again, here are proposed objectives for this coming year: continued monitoring of all open space areas and maintenance of existing trailways in the wildlife sanctuary, Island Ferry Woods, Parkway Woods, Meridian Woods, and Centennial Farm open space. So we want to monitor all open space areas and maintain the existing trailways that we have. Those are our major trails. We still want to conduct Dump the Junk, Find a Treasure events in the spring and the fall. We would like to launch this year, perhaps, a Adopt a Trail, Adopt a Plot, and work with all service groups or community organizations that want to be Friends of GROSSE Natural Areas for increased community involvement. So the more that we can get involved in not only using but maintaining and helping us in terms of volunteer work on these, that may be one of our objectives. And then we're looking to re-engage the schools K through 12, not just the high school, but in environmental awareness and increased involvement in creative use of our open space areas. Does anyone have any other proposed objectives that you think we should be doing? Yes.
So we want to update the guide to the natural areas of
Yes.
Grosse. And we should also, those last two,
Yes.
adopt a trail and re-engaging the schools, we should
Yes.
probably put something in there about working with the Conservancy, because we have those, the Conservancy has those same goals, and we should plan things together so we're not planning in contradiction.
Right, contradiction. Good. Yep, I can change the language on that. Anything else?
What I think we should be looking at or starting to explore is parking accessibility at some of the trailheads. I know it may not be practical in some areas, but quite honestly, there's no place set up right now for parking. There might be some opportunities, particularly on Ferry Road for the ferry trails, and maybe along East River Road for the Meridian Woods. What it would take to do that and evaluate the costs and see if we can help accommodate people in getting better access to it.
It's a good point. Ferry is awful.
I think the whole, as we have had the open space program over the course of many years, one of the things I think that, increasingly so is the fact that, there has to be greater access for people who, it's all fine and good if you can walk to a certain area or ride your bike to a certain area, but not everybody can walk or ride a bike to their area if they still want to get out into the nature area. So you're right, and if you were looking to even access the new ferry trails, you'd have to park on Lowry and then walk almost like a half a mile in order to get to it, and that's very difficult for people to do. So increasingly, and again, I don't know if we have to change the ordinance or look to the township to modify or amend some of the rules and regulations that we have, but I think we're to that point in our history of the open space program that we need that, because and I know you can go to every natural space, you can go to national parks, you can go to state parks, you can go wherever, and increasingly you're looking at access for all, and all means all, okay? So if you have people that are handicapped or need assistance or whatever, there has to be that kind of a area. And if we were looking in some cases, particularly I'm looking at the East River area there, that as it was like, as Great All came in and brought the big steam shovel back in there and did the ditching, they, in some ways, that was a blessing in disguise, because they also opened a pathway that we were able to utilize as a path now, a trailway that's been extensively used in that area. The people use that all the time, 24 hours a day if you let them, but they can't get in there in the night. But there's an area under, and again, it's under the DTE right-of-way, and again, that's DTE property, not township property or open space property, that is accessible for parking. So maybe we need to look to see if we can, exploit's a very strong word, but that is a good word in terms of like, if we can utilize those kinds of opportunities when we have them to do so. And if that means we've already got, Lord knows we have enough wood chips on this island at this point in time, and we'll have more that we can do something with. But also, we also may, one of our expenditures might be, we have to get some gravel down there, and now we'll have places to park, and people can park their car and go into the woods and do whatever. So, I'm sorry, yeah, and that too, exactly. But anything else? So are we okay with the proposed objectives for, and again, working with the Conservancy on the re-engagement and adopt the plot, updating the guide to the natural areas, and evaluating parking accessibility where feasible, and whatever else that takes, that we will do that kind of evaluation. I would then at this time entertain a motion to adopt our annual report and again, I will update this and put it in formalize it a little more, for 2022, 2023. I would entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Bloetscher,
Second.
second by Mr. Geist
Sorry.
and Ms. Phillips. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Good, thank you very much. So, we're looking at a spring dump the junk. And I think originally we were looking at May, some date in May. However, as I was trying to find out when the St. James Episcopal Church had their rummage sale that we were able to utilize as, for excess treasures that could be preserved and given to them. I believe the first weekend in May.
It's the first Saturday.
First Saturday in May.
Or,
Which means if we're looking to keep that kind of relationship with our local, church intact, that we would maybe have to look at the last weekend in April as a possible dump the junk, find a treasure. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to continue to, but we just established this kind of relationship with St. James Episcopal, but that with that Saturday before.
Mr. Chair, I had a conversation, I took liberty of speaking with one of last year's co-chairs, Alice Kerrigan, at the Episcopal Church, and I vividly recall when we went ahead, you and I took stuff over there. I think it was several truckloads, and that was very successful. She has indicated that they are starting on Wednesday, May 3rd, going through Thursday the 4th, Friday the 5th, and Saturday the 6th.
Right.
Will be the last day. We would be looking at the week before.
Right.
When you and I looked at Salvation Army, when we looked at Habitat for Humanity, and there was the church in Detroit where Pastor came down with her truck and we loaded that up the previous event. I think there is a certain amount of value of going ahead of the Episcopal Church spring rummage sale, so if there are items that are of value, we can take those over there. I now have a flatbed trailer where we could tarp whatever is there, and as opposed to the trailer that we used last time, Bill. But there is some value, I think, for the church, and frankly, a value in terms of doing service to our fellow humanity. And some stuff there that has some value should be used as opposed to put in a dumpster. All that being said, that's the schedule, and I think Amanda could probably take that a little bit further if she wants to. But it seemed like last year there was some benefit to the church for having those items there that brought in a little extra money and was good for the benefit of other people.
Carl, I'll have to check on that. I'm glad you talked to Alice, and I'll check on that about how that worked out for the church.
Please.
Okay?
Yes.
Please.
But are we looking at, is that April 28th would be a date?
I think it's the 29th.
I think it's
Or
29th.
29th? I'm sorry. I don't have mine.
Ninth?
I would like to remind Mr. Chairman that end of April still can have some pretty iffy weather, so that
Yes.
if we get a downburst like last year, it won't feel quite as refreshing.
Correct. I know.
There's only one person that can
Birthday of the 22nd?
determine whether
Yeah.
that's,
Right.
that's gonna be.
Kiwanis
Lordy.
cleanup.
Right.
Yeah, that's
So the 29th, is that Saturday? Or what's the availability of the group for the 29th?
that would have to be.
Can you make the 29th?
Yeah.
Except dump the junk on April 29th? Okay.
Cat enrichment.
Raymond?
I'm
You have-
check-
You have the
checking my-
Carlson Invitational the night before, which 29th is good? Okay, nothing scheduled except spring dump the junk, find a treasure. Do I have a motion to adopt dump the junk, find a treasure on April 29th, 2023?
Hours of operation?
Hours of operation from 9 till 4. Cliff, you and I will work on getting the signs.
Yeah, we can do that.
Now, do we need to make sure that the township
We
can
have to make,
accommodate
yeah,
us?
we have to clear it, yeah. I called Donna Deppa today in the DPS and left her a message. At least I said this was tentative.
Well, I'll move that the spring dump the junk be scheduled for April 29th, 2023.
Okay, good.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bloetscher. Motion by Mr. Geist. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Good, thank you. So mark your calendar. We have been studying property acquisition of township surplus properties for certainly since last May. And in our closed session, we definitely had a interesting discussion about property acquisition under the possibility. So at this point in time, I would entertain a motion to approve the property acquisition of properties on Meridian Road. Should I identify it exactly? But that have been discussed at the price that will be conveyed to the township manager at this time. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Bloetscher,
Second.
second by Mr. Geist. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Good, thank you. Okay, the Casandra Talaba, our GROSSE school liaison, could not be with us, and I guess we forget what it's like to be a high school senior and how busy they are. But she did send at least an update, and I will read it to you. It says, "Good morning, Mr. Stevenson. I unfortunately will not be able to attend since I am volunteering at our school's Powder Puff fundraiser tonight. But I have attached, and they generally have do this and have done this for charities and have raised a great deal of money. But I've attached a report for the schools below, reviewing last month's activities. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'll try to respond as quickly as possible." So, from GROSSE High School, she says the amount of members in the environmental awareness has decreased since the beginning of the semester. I wish this was all good news. This is not going to be good. We have had attempts at trying to recycle more items from lunch, but administration and janitorial staff think it's too much of a hassle to deal with, and they do not think it is worth implementing. Okay, we'll talk about that. We have tried starting different fundraisers, but don't have anything to necessarily put the money towards, so the office isn't too keen on us starting anything. If there are any ideas, please let us know. We will let them know. After all, not much has happened or changed, but we are trying to get volunteers for Dump the Junk spring event. So I will definitely be in conversation with her and the schools over that report, and then certainly over the Dump the Junk. For the middle school and elementary schools, we don't have consistent contact with other schools, so it's hard to communicate about recycling and other opportunities. A lot of students don't seem very interested in recycling or protecting the earth, and we're going to say shame on you. So we have a hard time getting them to participate or volunteer. Well, we need to, so if one of our proposed objectives for 23-24 is to re-engage the schools, so I guess we have a task before us, group. But that's all for the schools liaison. I'm sorry?
Right, yeah.
I've seen the special where all the recycling went to Mandy.
Oh, yes. Oh, did they? I guess I missed that one. Yeah, I can imagine. All right. Mr. Bloetscher, do you have anything from the township?
You've covered the property acquisition, and again, Bill, I think you did a terrific job the other day advocating and having this project move forward. I thank you for that, and I think that you were very, very instrumental in making that happen. The second thing is that our objectives for 2022, item number 6 includes expanding access to thoroughfare canal from Meridian. There are 2 grubbed out areas that are presently available. One is north of the bike path, pedestrian path, as it crosses Thoroughfare Canal on the east side between Lowry and Meridian. That area has been grubbed out and somewhat in a state of disrepair as the county is getting ready to work on that bridge, replace that bridge. That is an area where we've previously had a drawing schematic done professionally showing what we'd be able to access the canal from that side. That remains available, but until the county has worked on that bridge, I think it would be ill-advised for us to try and do anything with that area before they've had a chance to replace that bridge. They're going to have to store the equipment and the construction materials someplace, and that's a logical place for that to happen. And second thing is there is the grubbed out area on Meridian again. This time is on the west side, just south of Lowry, where the water lines were used to store equipment, materials, and some of the piping there that ultimately went in to replace water mains. That remains grubbed out. I have spoken to both the township manager and the township supervisor about perhaps putting in a wood chip trail there because all the hard work is done and all we would have to do would be to lay the wood chips, and that would be an item that would be very, very easy to do, perhaps even with the dump trucks that they have available. But it is necessary for us to walk the project, first walk the property, because we do have a ravine there, and there would be an issue as to where we could put, as an example, water access that would include a floating dock for fishing, something that we do not have on the island readily available to the public. So what I would propose to do would be to meet with Mr. Stevenson and the township supervisor, the township manager, on site with anybody else who would like to do a brief walk back there and see what would be available and if we'd be interested in developing some of that area that is, again, just south of Lowry on the opposite side of Meridian. And it is on township-owned and open space-owned properties, so it would be an easy thing to do. But I would think once things dry out, hopefully sometime in April, we'd be able to do a walkthrough like we did previously with Mr. Geist and Mr. Stevenson on the property across from or north of Bridge Road and or south of Bridge Road, north of Horse Mill, in what we did there. So that concludes my report. I will send out an email with the date and time. Anybody who's available and interested, let's go for a walk.
Trustee Carl, I've
Thank you.
got 2 questions related to that report. One, is the bike trail bridge going to be impacted by the replacement of the Meridian Road Bridge?
At this point, we don't have a definitive report as to what will happen. I can tell you that bridge was $400,000 20 years ago, as I understand it. And it is in excellent shape right now. We've just gone through and maintained it, spent a lot of money on maintenance on the entire pathway. And I don't look forward to having that replaced. But that is not so far determined in the county's reports. The county has done the engineering studies, and it appears that they're going to be involved in demolition. It is my hope that they will not. I personally expect that bridge to be smaller because right now it looks like it's good for 2 lanes of traffic plus emergency vehicles on the side if your car breaks down or your truck has a flat tire. So that bridge appears to me to be excessive. I'm hoping that they can move it away from the bike path bridge, but that hasn't been determined yet.
I think there are certain minimum requirements for the width of bridges and all that stuff that they'll have to follow
Correct.
regardless. My second question is on the area you said grubbed out west of Meridian. Won't they be likely using that as a layout down area too? Because they're going to have a lot of materials, just like the water replacement line work.
That has not been determined, but when you look at the bridge that was done, the approach bridge to the county free bridge over West River, they used a minimal amount of area for storing equipment. And if you look at the bridge to Mesa Island, just south of Hoover's and across from the International Wildlife Refuge, they had a very small footprint there. And I remember the Cornful vehicles that were on the northeast side of that bridge took up a incredibly small amount of space. So my hope is that they're going to do all of the work that they need to have with storage, vehicle placement, staging area will be done north of the county bridge, or north of the bridge over Thoroughfare, as opposed to south and going through the grubbed out area that we want to take a look at. But again, I'll be talking with Derek Thiel about that tomorrow, the township manager.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Carl. Mandy Phillips, do you have anything from the Grosseille Nature and Land Conservancy?
Yes, I have the report on the, about the Pragmites Control Research Project, that, I want to go over that just a little bit more, and after letting you know about what the next events are this Saturday on March 11th, there's another walk in Meridian Woods, across from Meridian Elementary School, from 1 to 2:30.
Wait, that's not this Saturday.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, it is, the 11th.
They had and they had one in February, I think.
They did.
So
That
March,
31 It says March.
It's in the newsletter too.
There is another one, and there's also the Girl Scout
Right.
program at the nature area. So that's tentatively scheduled this Saturday in Meridian Woods. Early signs of spring walk. Tuesday, April 11th, is the Dr. Bruce Jones Memorial Scholarship deadline from high school seniors. And I'd like to add with what the student from Grosseille gave her report to Mr. Stevenson, about the lack of interest in recycling. Part of this Dr. Jones scholarship application, we changed the emphasis, and Bert did a great job on this, from recycling to being more involved environmentally, in the natural areas, and it's just not about recycling.
Right.
Yeah, which is, they're very stuck in that, and I think that's part of their problem. We'll see what the applications say. Saturday, April 22nd, which is Earth Day. The week before the Dump the Junk Day. We're going to participate this year. We're not going to put on our own independent program, which have been not even semi-successful the last year and maybe the year before. And of course, COVID was a problem. We're going to participate in the all-island cleanup with the Kiwanis this year, and participate in the all-island cleanup and meeting at the Resource Center, our new building on Macomb that was formerly Salon Cigarettes. That is taking up a great deal of time for the Conservancy, is doing work on the Resource Center. That's the main topic these days. And the Take It Outside photo contest is underway. Let's see. They were having a problem with the getting students to participate. I don't know what status is right now, but when are they due? There's a reward. It doesn't have on here when the photos are due.
What are they doing in the fall?
No, it's
No,
in
the
May.
spring.
In May?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it has some really nice categories. That's been hard selling that this year, is the last I heard. And so quickly, without reading the whole email that about this Pragmites issue, is that the U.S. Geological Survey Great Lakes Science Center has approached the Conservancy with the opportunity to participate in a Pragmites control research project using non-toxic materials, orange oil, sucrose, glycerol, larginine, amino acid, etc. The experimental treatments focus on the relationship that bacteria and fungi have with the invasive Pragmites. And I won't go into all the details of the ratio of what to what. The Conservancy is not required to perform any labor, and the United States Geological Survey will get all the necessary permits. The suitable site that the Conservancy is working with is the Taylor Preserve. Seems to be the best fit for this research, which is located at Haley Crescent and Hickory Circle, adjacent to the Devonzo Preserve, which is, kind of east of the sewer treatment plant off of the canal.
Excuse me, it's Haley Crescent and
And Haley Crescent and Hickory Circle,
Hickory Circle.
adjacent to the Devonzo Preserve. It's a kind of a remote area off the canal,
Right.
off by that subdivision on
Back
the north side of Parkway. Yeah, okay. So what this Conservancy feels we should contribute to the research that might eventually lead to the getting rid of the invasive Pragmites with non-toxic treatments. So there's the proposal, etc. So it's going to be part of the board meeting of the Conservancy tomorrow night to discuss this
Good.
further. But it's moving along, so you'll be curious to see how this works out.
Great, we are too. Good.
Yeah,
Anything
just-
else?
No, that's it.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
The photo contest deadline is May 11th.
May 11th for the
Yeah, I
Take It Outside photo contest?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
May
Right.
11th, thanks. It's not on
And
here.
that's for all downriver students?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Wayne, Washington, and Monroe counties, yeah.
Good,
Inspired us to appreciate and steward our environment.
thank you.
Okay.
We don't have a report from the Recreation Department unless we do.
Is it Burt Mann?
Pam is still on her worldwide tour, and hopefully she's going to be back for May, I believe.
She's gonna be back in May.
That's what I heard.
back.
And so the island beautification. Although as we're getting ready for spring, I'm sure Four Corners and other areas are going to be spruced up and getting ready for that. Theresa, anything on welcome letters? No. I don't know if we necessarily need to discuss, but just realize that, trail maintenance is an ongoing thing for us, and making sure that if you have certain designated trail areas or woods that you have been assigned to, if you get a chance, put your boots on and get out there and take a look at if there needs to be some work done. I know our biggest concern, particularly after this last ice storm and with the snowstorms that have been here, are the amount of trees that have been down and now the debris that's been collected, which is only going to add to the wood chip issue that we have. And so we're trying to get to a point where we can get that out on the trails or get it out into other designated areas, like we're talking about that grubbed out area, so that we can alleviate some of these, these are not molehills, these are pretty good sized mountains of wood chips. And so that's one of the things we'll certainly be talking to the township supervisor and township manager about.
About the Conservancy using those.
Chips through the Centennial.
No, I think, that needs to happen. and it will, I would think that's a good place to move them.
One point about wood chips. I know on the Ferry Trail, a lot of times we've been talking about waiting until the ground freezes in order to be able to get equipment in there to dump the
Right.
wood chips, but, well, look at what happens when we have a winter that's not a real winter.
Yeah.
And we have climate change that is increasingly warming our winter and, creating these pockets of cold and then followed by warmth. So that's something that we have to think about.
Oh, most, yeah, very much so. That could be a whole nother meeting, okay, which maybe should be. And then, we need to set a date. We were talking about in May of having a ribbon cutting ceremony for the new Ferry Trail and also for the connector from East River to, the Meridian Trail. Sometime in May, that might be a possible time, realizing I know we're getting together for, not only an April meeting, but also an April Dump the Junk event, and so, familiarity, I know breeds contempt, but it's like, we'll see you often, and again in May. I will be, in Miami in April, or in May, excuse me. So I have a nice Dump the Junk, I'll be gone, no. So in May, I'll be gone, so like in mid-May, and I'll be back, so it needs to be after the mid part of May to have a ribbon cutting ceremony. And Cliff, you can help me with this too. There have been some signs that have been already purchased and have been delivered to the DPS to be, staked into the ground for our ribbon cutting ceremonies, identifying these obviously as open space trails to be used and properly used and enjoyed. So is there a time in May?
Well, a couple things I guess I'd suggest is for the dump the junk and for the ribbon cutting.
Yes.
Can you get an article into the Grand
Absolutely.
ahead of time? So
Yes.
So the ribbon cutting should come after the May issue comes out, which is around about mid-month, right?
Yes, should be.
And then we've got Memorial Day.
We just have to look at it.
Weekend,
I know you
which
have that, but maybe the
Want to
weekend,
avoid that.
the weekend after because Mother's Day is the first Saturday.
Mother's Day is the 14th.
Oh, is it the 14th? And it's a Sunday.
So the 13th is an option if you're on the 20th.
Right.
And the 27th goes into.
I'll be gone on the 13th.
27th is Memorial Weekend.
Do you want those signs erected before the ribbon cutting
Yes,
ceremony?
probably, I would think so. So we'll have to get on that.
So the 27th is a Saturday and Memorial Weekend. Are you here or gone?
I'm here.
I'm gone.
You're
No,
gone.
I mean, that's probably the 13th.
What dates are you going?
Unless you want to do it early May, like the day before Mother's Day.
The 13th?
Oh, it's the 13th?
27th.
I don't necessarily have to be
Or the
here.
20th. Are you around on the 20th?
I'm around on the 20th.
I thought you were gone midnight.
No,
I'm going on the 20th. I leave on 20th. All right.
no, I know. I get it.
You could send out an email.
Memorial Weekend might be good weather, and, it might be an opportunity for people to ride the trail.
Right, exactly. That's a possibility.
That's the 27th.
Does it, here's the other thing, it doesn't necessarily have to be on a Saturday or Sunday. It can be like on a Thursday or something, or it could be at a time. I mean, that we can all kind of gather and at least, the public or anybody from the township, because it has been it's been a good struggle, but a positive struggle that's been completed, that the Open Space Greenways Committee has, worked on for quite some time.
Yeah, we can do it on an evening. 'cause
Okay,
the
so
days
we can
are
do it like on
longer.
an evening, since we now are going to daylight savings time soon.
Weekend.
So why don't we do this? Let's try to coordinate a couple things. Number one, we'll get the stakes in, okay, the trail markers in, that can happen pretty soon. Then we can also, maybe I can send an email out to look at some possible dates that we can do this, and then if we can make it, and you can see what time, we can make that available, and we can go from there. That sound fair enough?
Yep.
Good. Awesome. Anything else?
One thought, Mr. Chair, when we look at the reports, one of the objectives that was suggested was maybe develop a working ventures as possible with Conservancy. We do have Island Fest coming up in June, and I don't know, Bert or Amanda, if the Conservancy is planning on doing any kind of a booth, but I think that would be an excellent time to pass out what remaining of those open space trail guides we have. And if there's some ability for us to work with the Conservancy with a booth, if they're planning it, that might
Yep,
be a
we
good
are.
thing to do.
Yeah, we're gonna have one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good
We can
idea.
look to that.
So I
How
think
about we
if,
bring that up at our next meeting?
that's what I'm thinking,
Yeah, right.
bring it up in April meeting and see what we can do.
You want to have a revised, or just, do you want to have a revised half available, or do you want just to have the pamphlets that we have?
I'd like to use up what we have. I know it's in the offices over at Community Development. And if we can go through that, and then when we have completed our projects, perhaps with Ferry Road, Meridian, and trails, as well as that grubbed out area we've been talking about, I would like to incorporate those, but I think we should use what we have. And then we can revise later and use those as those projects are completed and trails come online.
I think it'd be difficult to turn around a revised guide before the beginning of June. so-
Agreed.
Right,
Absolutely.
right. Good.
It took us
Wait till we
a
get this.
number of months to get
One
it
thing at a
done.
time, right? Okay, so before I get the guide ready, okay. Good. There are no public comments to be limited to 3 minutes or less. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved by Ms. Weeks,
Second?
second by Mr. Bonney. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good meeting.